Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today I've got John Munn, and we're going to be talking about mastering the art of working less. So how can we do more but actually put less time in? How can we be more productive? I know John, because I've spoken to him many times, is actually believes that if you can do more by actually working less hours. And we're going to get into that. So, John, tell people where they can get hold of you.
Yeah, so if you're interested in the kind of thing that I do and getting some free tips, you can follow me on LinkedIn, which is just in John JD Munn. I'll be the top person there. Or you can find my website. So it's johnjdmunn.com. And I write a newsletter called Work Smart Wednesday, which goes out every week. It's totally free and it has 3 tips each week for things that you can do. So it's always one highly actionable thing that you can do this week to help you work less and work more efficiently. One kind of thought piece of, oh, maybe you should be considering this, maybe you should be thinking about this, and then one quote that you can work with as well. But
Right.
I focus on actionable advice, things that you can actually implement.
Actually
So
do.
yeah, johnjdmunn.com, and you can find all of that there.
So before we get into this, you are a slow mad, aren't you?
I am a slow mad, yeah. It's a bit of a cringy term, but yeah, slow mad is probably the best way I found to describe it so far.
So it's a digital nomad, but you stay in a country for a year.
Yeah, we move country once every year. We're in Thailand at the minute, but a lot of digital nomads, we meet digital nomads all the time, and a lot of them move every 2 weeks or every month. Um, there's a few people that we've met that are slow mads like us that move once a year. We just find that that's a more enjoyable way of doing it.
Yeah, my partner and I, we went and worked in France for a week just the other week. So we were working, but we were in France. It's really interesting to take a different perspective, break up the routines and stuff like that. It was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Where in France were you?
It was in a place called Saint Simeon, which is near um, uh, Disney.
Oh, nice. It's always nice to be able to break up, and you find that if you getting out of the environment that you normally work in can really help with thinking
Yes,
creatively.
it's why we
So
it's why
yeah,
we went.
I usually recommend that.
So John, tell us about time and efficient use of time.
That's a very broad question.
It is. I'm
Um,
I'm being broad, and I'm going to narrow in.
okay, so I started my time journey a bit like how most people do from being absolutely burned out.
Mm.
I was running a company that was across 7 countries at the time, and it was a lot of work. And it got to a point where it was untenable to continue like that. So I came across this video online, which I know I've mentioned to you before with the jelly beans. It's a very quick video. It's like 3 minutes. But this guy puts your life into perspective of jelly beans. So there are 28,000 jelly beans. Each one represents a day. And then he takes away parts for this is how long you'll be asleep. This is how long you'll be doing this, etc. And in the end, you've got this small pile. And he just asks, what are you going to do with your time? And for me, at that time in my life, that really hit home of I don't actually have that much time and I'm spending it doing all this stuff and feeling stressed and it's not working for me. So I looked into it and changed the way that I did things. And a lot of the stuff online is absolute gunk, like is yeah, not great. And I made a lot of mistakes that many other people make, such as trying to copy other people's routines, which doesn't really work for various reasons. I'm sure we can get into that. Um, yeah, I found the stuff that did work. Things went really well. I managed to reduce my working week to about 10 hours a week,
Wow.
and people started asking me for help. And so I started helping people. I really enjoyed it. I run a company now that takes me just a couple of hours a month, just a few hours a month. I've got a team that handles most of the stuff. But I found that I enjoyed doing the coaching. I was helping people, so I started doing that more. Kind of to fill in the time, I guess. But it's really rewarding to be able to help people and see that how much it makes a difference. People that couldn't spend time with their family because their business was taking over their entire life suddenly have all this time and they can do all the things that they want to do, and they actually find that they make more money as well, because the best way to get your time back is to improve efficiency. And when you improve efficiency, you get time, but you also end up making more money because things work better. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with things and how I got into the whole productivity time. Um,
So
yeah, there's
so in effect,
definitely some.
what you've done is that you've reduced your hours, but you've increased increased what the output.
Yeah, absolutely. So doing fewer things, but making sure that those few things that I do are the things that have the biggest impact. So a lot of people are aware of the Pareto principle. 20% of the things that you do is 80% of the
Mm.
outputs. Um, that's holds fairly true for most things. And one of it is a lot of people know that and they apply it to many things in their life, but they don't really apply it to their time. And that's one of many things that we do in order to make sure that you can work less but make more is, okay, what are the 20% of things that you spend your time on that actually make a difference?
Yeah.
Let's do more of that's a difference and less of everything else. So that's like a very core fundamental thing of what I believe, that we should be doing more of the stuff that makes a difference. And what I help people do is identify those things that make a difference and make it easier to do them.
And also, what's in terms of productivity? How do you measure productivity?
Yeah, I think productivity just means achieving that you intended to achieve. Okay. It's not how many hours you've worked, it's not how many dollars you've earned, it's not anything like that. It's useful for it to be quantifiable. Um, but productivity without goals is how you end up being the best employee at a job that you hate,
Yeah.
or number one email checker in the world. Like, it's a title that nobody wants. And for me, being productive is you've had achieved it in the easiest possible way and you've achieved it in a way that you've enjoyed. That's something that's productive. So how do I measure productivity? It's against, have I achieved what I intended to achieve with this? Yes or no? If I have, it's productive. If I haven't, then maybe I need to revisit that and see where it went wrong.
It was isn't it Bill Gates that said if you want to find an efficient way to do something, give the job to a lazy person because they'll find the most quickest way of doing it.
Yeah, I suppose. I think that's a misattribution of the word lazy, but
Yes.
that absolutely is a thing.
So
I think just on that,
yeah,
it's often easier it's often easier to work more. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but just figuring out the things that actually make a difference isn't easy. Figuring out the things that you should do and saying no to everything else isn't easy. And from what I've seen, and this opinion that's developing and developing in me over the last year or so, is that I'm starting to believe that it's actually quite lazy for people to work extremely hard. Um, that they've not spent the time to consider what they're doing is worthwhile, and they've not spent the time to think about what they're doing, and they're not asking themselves the hard questions. And in my opinion, I think just laziness wise, I think that's there's a misattribution
mm.
about you don't need to work 100 hours a week in order for you to be peak productive.
I
So
think people
actually, it's
just.
detrimental.
I agree with you. I think that people quite kind of they kind of they've been told to grind it out, and therefore what we're going to do is we're just going to add more and more hours. Um, Whereas yesterday,
Yeah.
my partner was feeling stressed, and she said, "There's so much work to do," and I said, "Let's go for a walk."
Yeah, just taking a break and just reset that whole thing. And I
And
think people hide behind work.
yes, and we went and we had a walk, and she came back and said, I just feel far more creative and inspired just for a simple walk, and I'm going to be more efficient at doing at that. So by taking 2 hours out, because we actually had lunch, she came back and was more effective. We, we have a very slight delay on between you and me. I think it's
Yeah,
about.
I've just noticed it.
Hmm.
I am here though. Let's see if
Okay.
there's anything on my side. Okay, I am here. It's wonderful that you did that. So many people beat them. So many people beat themselves up about work that day, and they try and push through it. And sometimes you do need to push through, but other times as well, you need to just say, "Yeah, it's not happening today. I'm not going to do it." Because you can spend 6 hours doing this thing that should only take you 1 hour, and you feel bad about doing it because it's taking you 6 times as long as it should. And actually, you'd be better served going for a walk or just switching to a different kind of task that you are feeling more lit up by.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think going for a walk in that circumstance is absolutely the right thing to do.
Andrew says, find a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. I don't know who said that, but well, Andrew said it, but I'm sure that's a quote from somebody, isn't it?
Yeah, quite. That's been used so much. Like I don't even know what the original source for that is now. Um,
So John, why don't we just outsource everything? We get a virtual assistant, and why don't we just do that?
I think anybody that's hired somebody before would know the answer, which is just outsourcing it can actually create more work than doing the damn thing yourself, you know? And that's often a problem with the way that you outsource and what your processes are, or it might be the problem with the person that you've hired. Um, if you outsource without fixing the system first, all you're doing is adding more complexity into an already broken system. And when that happens, it creates more work and creates more problems. And okay, that some of that work might be being done by somebody else, but you're still going to have to do some of it. And it creates management, it creates bloat. There's one of the things that I see most often is people hiring too early, where they hire team members without cleaning the system first. And so it just gets really complicated. It's very hard to undo that when it's happened. It can be done, but it's much more complex to fix that after you've made the mistake of hiring somebody too soon than it would have been for you to just automate or delete things earlier on. Avoid a lot of the time is hiring people to do tasks that should never be done at all.
I agree. I think it's so easy to push it off onto somebody, but the thing about hiring any virtual assistant or that what you've got to do is you usually have to manage them or coach them or train them or something. And by the way, sorry, Andrew points out it's a Mark Twain quote.
Okay. So yeah, totally. It's you just create a different kind of problem. You hire somebody for that kind of thing. Now you have to manage them, or you have to train them, or whatever. And actually, look, some of the times that task shouldn't even be being completed. You know, we don't need to complete that task. So you've hired somebody and you're paying somebody and you're doing all this stuff that is totally unnecessary, and that just creates more problems.
So you use tools, don't you, that help you manage your day and where you're spending your time?
Yeah, so I use a few different things. So the first thing is always removing tasks that I believe don't need to be done.
Mm,
But then there's automation and then there's delegation after that.
right.
But I track my time.
Yeah.
So I track when I'm working, I track exactly what I'm doing, how long it's taking me, what it is, and then I periodically review that time and say, okay, I spent X amount of time this month doing this thing. What was that worth it? You know, what did I get out of that? Did it take too long? Should I have spent more? What kind of result? What's my return on investment for that time? So I think I mentioned this before, but I think just tracking your time, knowing what you spend your time on is easily the highest return on investment activity.
So which tool do you use for this, John?
Yeah, I use a free tool called Toggle. T O. It keeps saying that the connection's lost, so I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to try and talk through it just in case.
I can hear
Um,
you, John.
yeah, I use a free tool called Toggle. Toggl. You can find it just with a Google search, or it's toggle.com. But I use the web version because I do most of my work on my laptop. But there's also a free app. So the whole thing's free. It gives you the reports. It's really easy to use. If you don't want to use an app or technology, you can just do pen and paper and just create like a little tally chart, write down tasks that you normally find yourself doing, mark every time you do an hour on that task. And for the first week or so, that's enough for you to understand where you're spending your time, and actually, are you spending your time working on the business, so growing the business, or working in the business, doing basic fulfillment? And you don't want to be spending too much time working in the business. It's necessary to do that fulfillment, but if you just do the fulfillment, you're never going to grow. You're not going to improve. It's a trap that people fall into.
And so there's an upfront investment in terms of using that tool, isn't there, to track, which I can imagine some people would say, oh, that's extra work.
The tool's free to use, and the setup takes maybe about 5 minutes to use it. The thing that people struggle with is remembering to hit play when
Right.
they're tracking a task. Now you can manually enter tasks after if you forget, but also if you forget a couple of tasks, then it's okay. What we want from the time tracking is to have a reasonable understanding of how you spend your time, how much time you even spend. A lot of people don't know that. They might have an inkling of, I feel that I work 50 hours a week, but maybe they only work 35 and they don't know. Or maybe they work 60 and they don't know. And it's if you don't know that, you have no idea how much money you're making per hour. You have no idea if what you're doing is effective or not, or you have no idea how much you should pay somebody else to do this task, or any of these things. And it's madness that people think about tracking their revenue, and everybody's clued up. You should definitely track how much money you make,
Yeah.
but not that many people track how much time they spend making that money. Maybe you'd be better off in a job, like
Yeah.
maybe you'd make more money per hour doing that if money is your objective.
Mm.
Um, but it's the key input that we all put in to work. The absolute fundamental input is our time, and so few people actually track that. And tracking your time, from at least what I've seen, again, is the highest return on investment activity you can take by far, and it's totally free.
Yeah. And Andrew's commented saying, is it down to us being more distracted by life and not being able to structure our day?
Sometimes, yeah, but for the vast majority of people, I don't think so. No, I think for the vast majority of people, sometimes being more distracted can be a good thing. Taking that walk, actually
Mm.
distracted, taking that walk, etc., can actually be a really good thing for a lot of people. I don't think it's so much about being distracted. I don't think it's so much about having a hard structure for the day. That works for some people, not for everybody. I think the core thing is are you spending the time doing things that make a difference or not? Are you spending your time doing things that you enjoy or not? And that is much more fundamental than whether you were distracted when you were doing it, or whether it was structured the way that it was supposed to be structured. You know, spending your time doing the right thing is far more valuable than spending lots and lots and lots of time in a very structured manner doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. John, it's been fascinating talking to you about time, but the time is at the end. Remind people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me in some free actionable tips. You can find me here on LinkedIn. I'll be in the comments below, or you can find me at John JD Munn, my name here, johnjdmunn.com.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for coming on and giving your time up to talk to us today. And thank you, Andrew, for all the comments and the questions.